being obsessed with your mental health is bad for your mental health. I've been thinking a lot lately about a puzzle many are struggling with. Why are Biden's approval ratings so low when things are generally pretty good? Now, of course, there are problems. America's a big place, but wages are rising. Unemployment is negligible. The stock market is soaring. We somehow brushed off both the Trump presidency and the pandemic. Yes, inflation persists for a lot of things, but you know, an actual good, nice-sized TV now costs $60. Who gets credit for that? We've got next-day shipping, stuffed crust pizza, legal weed, GPS, and porn on the phone. Cheer the fuck up. Stop acting like life in America in 2024 is unbearable. Biden's ratings are in the toilet, not because he's doing such a bad job, but because a lot of Americans like to live with their head in the toilet. Let's look at the numbers. Almost a third of American adults have reported a depression diagnosis at some point in their life. And while depression is, of course, a very real thing, it's also true that earlier generations never suffered from the expectation that you're supposed to feel good all the time. 1 in 8 adults are on antidepressants, and that doesn't include the ones who steal them from their kids.
Bill Maher, the resident male Karen, I could think we all can just, you know, accept that this guy is pretty damn disgusting. He's considered the left, I guess, because he tells jokes, maybe because he's in Hollywood. But it's just from what he says is nothing about him that is left. Nothing about him is non-establishment. He's also was going to be a scab. Remember, he was announced that he was going to be a scab during the writer's strike, and then he had a little backlash, so he kind of backed off of it. And at the end, I think he saw what happened with Drew Barrymore, so he probably felt he made the right decision. But just listening to him give a scolding to people who are responding to polls based on their reality. So I am Joe Smo in Nebraska, and I'm working 60 hours a week. My rent just went up. Groceries have doubled. And so when you ask me the question, how's the economy doing? How is the economy doing for me? In this example, well, I'm working 20 hours plus over what's considered full time, and I still can't make ends meet. And then you have the audacity to talk about some stock market, to talk about some employment rate. I'm employed, and I can barely tread water. And the example I always give, what does an employment rate have to do with the economy? These markers that they have to so-called determine if an economy is good, these are markers that determine if owners are doing well. The stock market is owners are doing well. They have the audacity to make it equivalent that if the owners are doing well, that means the economy's doing well, right? Workers are saying no. No, that's not right. How are we judging an economy where the number one thing we're using to judge whether an economy is good is how far the dollar can go? Well, how is that not the marker? How far the dollar can go for the average worker? How is whether the economy is doing good? How is it not matched with workers' wages to inflation? Or workers' wages keeping up with inflation? How we're at $7.25 when we should be in the 30s or 40s? per hour for minimum wage? Why isn't that the judgment? How close we are to catching up to that number. So, but what is being shown, a bright, glaring flashlight, is that these markers that are telling you as the economy is good have nothing to do with whether the economy is doing good or not. How is it that the two things most people can't live without, which is food and housing, the two things that are stuck high at a high rate, how is that not the marker? But you want us to be happy that some prices on some fucking dolls have gone down. That's what they want you to be happy about. The price. What did he say? The price of a TV. Well, at least you can buy a TV. A TV? Where? So I can play while I'm unhoused? Nigga, I got rent. You're talking about a TV. So let's bring up this receipt here, and this is just the introduction, our introductory segment. But the rent is too damn high. Couldn't that, let me say it that way. Let's say there's 20 markers. You're doing good in 18 out of the 20 markers. But the two markers you're doing the worst in are the two markers that take up 99.9% of your income, which is food and housing. What is the value of the other two areas that I'm doing so quote unquote well in, if the two most important areas that take up the vast majority of my income, I'm doing bad in? They want you to judge on what they say to judge is a good economy. Owners are doing good. Look at Jeff Bezos. Look how much money he's made. Doesn't that mean the economy's doing good, huh? That's essentially what these scolding segments that they do, and they used to do them on mainstream media or corporate media, but they stopped, or they have subsided a lot because it didn't get a good reaction. I remember I did one where Stephanie Rule bought on somebody on MSNBC, and I know some of you remember this. It was a guy with long hair, glasses. He looked like the younger version of the guy from Back to the Future. You know, the older guy with the white hair. I forget his name. The older guy in the movie, the white hair, is two main characters, Michael J. Fox and the older guy with the white hair, like a younger version of him with glasses. If you guys remember that interview. But she brought him on to say it would be a bad thing if prices were going down. That was some of the foolishness, the mental jiu-jitsu they were trying to confuse workers, but we were here at RBN to bat that nonsense down. It was just complete nonsense. Yeah, Christopher Lloyd is his actual name. In the movie, it was Doc. Yeah, it's a classic. I'm a 80s baby, so I know all the 80s stuff, you know. Dynasty, A-Team, the Smurfs, what else was popular? Was Family Ties popular? Yeah, Family Ties. Anyway, I'm dating myself. But anyway, I was a kid when those were out. But as a kid, I watched a lot of TV because I was in a very restricted sort of household because we lived in Compton. Parents kind of kept a close eye on us here. But anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the story, and that is Bill Maher basically saying being poor ain't that bad, guys. It's not as bad as the poors are making it out to be. That's essentially what he's saying. Like, cheer up. But it's crazy how he mixes different topics to make them seem like it comes from the same source, it's the same meaning, and he mixes people's diagnosis with different sort of mental disorders. He mixes that in with people, I guess, not being happy about the economy, so they're not happy about anything. But let's talk about let's talk about the pointing out of the diagnosis of mental disorders. This is something we say here on RBN. These are illnesses of capitalism. So these are ailments, I should say, not illnesses, but these are, the frequency, let's say, that is a reflection of the brutality it is for a person to maintain themselves in capitalism, which shouldn't be a system that a economic system shouldn't drive people to medication in order to survive, in order to sustain. You get what I'm saying? So he's connecting them when they should not be connected, but I can make that connection with capitalism. And then he goes on later on, I'm not going to play it. He goes on to talk about who's the most unhappy. Then he brings in white women and talks about Karens, basically. And he mixes that all up as to mean what? Those are two distinctly different things that he's trying to make out to be, that the Karens are unhappy for the same reason people are saying the economy's terrible. As if that's the same reason. That's preposterous. But that's what the bourgeoisie class, the ruling class, does. They purposely don't get it. You get what I'm saying? And they glaringly see that the rent is too damn high, and Joe Biden knows it. This is from Politico. And I'm not gonna read it. I just wanted to make the point, because again, this is just the intro. Now let's get into what we're gonna be discussing here. Maybe I'll go back to Twitter here. Yeah, he goes on into another rant of statistics. But again, these statistics that they use, or stats, let's just say that, since I have a hard time saying that word, are slanted. They need to let workers pick the stats that are used. But before we close, I'm sorry, I forgot about this. Let's get a couple of reaction. Some people we like here over at RBN regulars. That's Carl Zah. You just saw him. I think he was on last month, or maybe it was the month before, since we're in the middle of March. Could have been a month before. He was just on. He says, "Let them eat cake." In other words, that's the translation of Bill Maher. Thank you, Carl. And then Ron Placone, rich guy in gated community, wonders what the poors are upset about. Failed state comedy. Yes. And then Danny Haifeng, multi-millionaire racist war propagandist agent Bill Maher insulting Americans for refusing to embrace a senile warmonger currently facilitating genocide in Gaza just about sums up the bankrupt liberal elite class. I love that better. I used a different phrasing, but the bankrupt elite class, bankrupt liberal elite class, in other words, clutching the pearls of their crumbling empire.